As your senator, building a modern transportation system will be one of my priorities because investing in transportation is investing in our people. For many working families, transportation isn't just about getting from one place to another. It's about opportunity. It's about keeping a job, getting an education, and building a better future. A strong economy depends on a strong middle class, and a strong middle class depends on having the tools people need to succeed. That's why transportation matters. When workers can get to work reliably, business can grow. When businesses grow, jobs are created. And when jobs are created, families thrive. Imagine a Guam where opportunity is within reach for everyone. I'm Donna Munikanata, and I approve this message.
Let me first say that I am extremely grateful to the men and women of Guam Power Authority for all of their hard work over the last week, and most especially for getting my power back on yesterday. And not a but and. So this has meant that since yesterday, I have had to plan to adjust back into an era of normality. And what that means is ever since then Invest 95W, when then Invest 95W was becoming a greater threat to the island and our storm coverage ramped up. You know, when storm coverage comes and typhoon preparedness happens after the storm coverage, it's a different ball game in every single newsroom. Like the number one thing becomes that storm, right? And everything else is I mean, I think even a murder story would not replace the weather when it comes to getting prepared for an incoming storm or typhoon recovery, right? Everything just sort of, and so my life has been upside down because of that. And because the power had been out, you know, there are certain things, there are certain limitations. And so I kind of, in a sense, ever since the storm passed, ever since the power has been out, been able to sleep a little bit longer, to eat whatever the hell I want to eat. And I'm just getting fatter and fatter by the minute, right? So when the power came back on, I had to make this mental note that sometime very soon, I have to get back to a state of normalcy. And that's tomorrow. So tomorrow I start to wake up early again. Tonight, I'm going to, you know, take my, my, what do you call it? Ashwagandha and, magnesium glycinate at a decent hour. And at a decent hour, I'm going to watch Modern Family and turn my phone off. And it's going to be pitch black in a very cold room so I can go to sleep and wake up early tomorrow so that we can resume having the morning shows at 8 a.m. and the evening shows at 7:30 p.m. as scheduled here on Kandit. So I am very grateful to Guam Power Authority for getting my power back on. I'm very grateful for the past week of not having power, for you know, being able to not work as hard and not stress out as much, but we get back into the grind tomorrow. Anyway, my name is Troy Torres. It's 7:53 p.m. on Tuesday, July 14, 2026. Welcome to the evening show on Kandit News. This is the Troy Torres Show, named after me. It is a show that I hope to have less and less. And I am told by Johnny Rosario with Kandit and the realtor that we put in an application for an office suite that it's going to become our studio, and I'm told that it was accepted and everything. So it's just any day now we're going to have our studio reopen, and that's going to lead to less of me and more of other people hosting shows like this. But we'll talk about that some other time. During this whole, you know, typhoon recovery debacle for us here in Guam, the legislature has been hard at work earlier today and also last night. We've been talking about the tax cut that the majority of the senators seem to want to institute. And, you know, we don't have to go over the Cliff's Notes of it fully tonight. I've been going over the Cliff's Notes in every single one of these episodes. Essentially, to abbreviate that, essentially, the legislature wants to reduce the BPT from 5% to 4% for those who have remained on the 5% as a 5% threshold. This legislature completed half of that promise when last year they lowered the BPT to 4.5%. So now in the current budget, the senators want to, at least the majority of them, want to reduce the BPT to 4%. This is within the context of more than 90% of businesses in this island for the past several years, thanks to Governor Lulian Guerrero, have only been paying at the 3% rate. So this is really only a few companies that are on the higher echelon of things. These are the large corporations that are paying at the that have been paying at the 5%, and then after last year the 4.5%, and now the Republicans mostly in the legislature want that rate for these large corporations to go down to 4%, largely because that was a promise that they made to voters, not just to these companies, but to voters in 2024. Earlier today, we talked about whether there was an ethical dilemma here, right? Like, what is the right thing for, especially for Republican legislators to do? And the reason I asked that question, it's not rhetorical at all, it's a serious question, is because all the Republicans are doing is fulfilling their promise. They made a promise back in 2024 to voters, not just to the business community, not just to the Chamber of Commerce or to military contractors, but to voters back in 2024. They're like, you elect us and we're going to roll back the BPT. And to be sure, that was from 5% to 4%. That's their real promise, right? And it was the loudest promise that they made was, we're going to do that. And, you know, for as many arguments as there can be made, and for as much reason that can be put into these arguments about, no, we should not roll it back from 4% to 4.5% to 4%. Maybe we shouldn't even have rolled it from 5% to 4.5% to begin with. You can reason all of that out, but at the end of the day, the Republicans are simply living up to the promise that they made. Is that ethical? And you know, you come to the first stop that you arrive at is, it is ethical to keep your promises, right? But then the next question would be, well, are you supposed to keep all of your promises? What if one of the promises that you made, what if a commitment you made to yourself, or of a commitment you made to your best friend was to punch someone in the nose? Is it ethical to keep a promise like that just because you want to keep a promise? But in this case, right, the Republicans, they made a promise to the voters, and it was transparent, and it was with the reasons that they gave in 2024, which were not botched reasons. These were not excuses or anything. These were reasons that they gave to the voters, and the voters elected Republicans to take over the legislature for the first time in 20 years. And it's not like keeping their promise is going to physically assault another person or take something away, take property away from another person. Matter of fact, what they aim to do is to allow property to remain with the people who earned those revenues, right? And then the other side of that is, so you know, maybe the answer to the question, is it ethical for them to keep their promises? Yes, it is. So then you go to the question, was it ethical for them to make that promise to begin with? And that's where we ended up with our show earlier today. And I started to play a portion of Saturday's legislative session, where the legislature was at the time discussing revenues. Now, the legislature has moved on from this conversation. We are just updating you on this because this all kind of happened when people still didn't have power. And so a lot of people weren't able to watch this. A lot of people don't know that this happened because all this news occurred during a time when people were still living without power. Most people have power now, right? So let me just update you about what has transpired. The legislature has wait, hold on, let me go to standby. Has over the past several days discussed the issue of revenues, and revenues includes the taxes that the legislature levies in order to get most of those revenues. One of those taxes is the BPT. And so they ended up going with their plan, the Republicans going with their plan to reduce the BPT to 4% from the 4.5%. But prior to that, there were senators who were like, hey, wait a minute. And I kind of like how Chris Barnett couched it all, right? He was like, you know, Senator guys, I know you made promises. I know you made promises to the Chamber of Commerce. Chris Barnett, probably should have recognized that it wasn't just the Chamber of Commerce that Republicans made a promise to; it was also to the voters. Okay, so if Chris Barnett was being more transparent about it, he would say, I know you guys made promises to a lot of people to reduce the BPT, but can we consider, A, B, C, and D? And the A, B, C, and D that he, Will Parkinson, Tello Taidegui, Sabina Perez, and Therese Terlahi brought up were very compelling A, B, C's, and D's. And that's what I want. That's what I've been trying to bring to you. So earlier we heard Tello Taidegui's A, B, C, and D. Tonight we're going to continue from that. And was after her was Will Parkinson. So Tello Taidegui, she made an amendment and she was like, look, let's not roll back the BPT for military buildup companies. And she gave great reasons for that, right? So Will Parkinson, he comes after that and he's like, I'd like to amend her amendment. Instead, I would like to increase for military buildup companies. I don't want to keep it at 4.5%. I want to increase the BPT to 6%. Earlier today, I had a conversation with Kandit's third. There are three shareholders in Kandit. Kandit's a corporation, and it's because there are three of us who invested into it: myself, Johnny Rosario, and the third person is Carlos Pangilinan, who hardly says anything on Kandit and actually does not have any operational role in Kandit. We were having a conversation earlier tonight, and I was like, hey, because Carlos he's a finance person. I'm not one of those people who knows a lot about money, and it's because I've never wanted to know that much about money. I'm very uncomfortable about money and managing money. And I just, I've always just felt money's the devil. So anyway, Carlos, he knows money, right? He knows finances, and he's not the devil. He's actually a very good person. Anyway, so I asked him, I was like, am I missing something here? In my civilian look at this, right, I'm thinking, is there some economic benefit to rolling back the BPT, to allowing these large corporations who are mostly off island, because they're not anchored here in Guam, and these are the ones making the tens to the hundreds of millions of dollars off of the military buildup money, right? Am I missing something here aside from, the ability for these companies to maybe hire more people or pay people more or whatever, right? If we give them this 0.5% tax cut, is that somehow going to be better for the economy? And when I say the economy, I'm talking about the middle class and the upper middle class, the lower middle class, and those living in poverty, the vast majority of the people of Guam. And Carlos says, let's put it this way. Let's say a company that makes $100 million this year from the military buildup. They, when they came to do business in Guam and they won that contract, they budgeted this out. They set aside $5 million, and they said in that budget that $5 million is what they're going to pay in the BPT. Okay, so if that company budgeted out that they're going to pay $5 million in BPT because that's the tax rate, 5%, and the legislature comes and cuts the taxes to 4.5%. So that means this company has $500,000 more, right? They're able to keep $500,000. It's like, yeah, okay. And Carlos says, well, I mean, how does it work in corporations? You think that that company is just going to be like, oh, hey, we got $500,000 extra that we weren't planning to have. Let's just go and buy these things so that we can help the people of Guam, and let's hire all these people who we don't need, and let's give these pay raises that we weren't planning on giving just because the legislature has allowed us to keep $500,000. I said, no. Matter of fact, whoever is leading those companies has a fiduciary duty not to spend that additional $500,000 that they got. That goes straight to the shareholders, because those who are operating these corporations have actual legal duties to their shareholders. And so it's not like these corporations, if you gave them this tax break, are going to be like, let's invest this further into Guam. They're not going to give pay raises. They're not going to hire more people. They came to this island with a plan and with a budget to execute something that they are known to be able to execute with precision. They're not going to start spending money just because the legislature has given them a tax cut. Those monies are going to be kept as profit, because that's exactly how a corporation is supposed to run, is legally supposed to run. And when you think about it this way, and I wonder whether senators are thinking about the practical application of these tax cuts, is this is not good for anybody but off-island corporations making money off of the price we in Paradise are paying for this military buildup. And so when I had that conversation with Carlos, I was like, gosh, that makes all the sense in the world. I wonder whether senators have considered this argument. Anybody who is involved in a corporation understands this, that those who operate the corporation have a legal obligation, a fiduciary duty to nobody else but to the shareholders. Everything else about that corporation is ancillary. Their commitment to customer service isn't about making the customers feel good. It's about making the customers pay more, or enticing customers to pay more money and to keep coming back and to keep paying money. Why? Because the operators know that that's what's going to drive more profit to the shareholders. Everything is about the shareholders. This is not about this. For a corporation doing business here, profiting off of the military buildup, they have no obligation to appease Guam senators and be like, hey, since you gave us this tax cut, we're going to invest more into Guam. There's nothing more. No, they can't. They can't just blow that money on things that they weren't planning to blow that money on. That money has to be used in the service of profit to the shareholders. And so at the end of this all, this tax cut that the senators want to give is essentially a gift, just a gift to off-island corporations. I want to bring you the what the senators had to say on Saturday, starting with the amendment from Senator Parkinson. And we'll start that on the other side of this short commercial break. Stick with us.
He has that innate talent of even the most difficult times, giving comfort, giving solace, bringing stability. In my 64 years, there are people I've known that have passed away, and there's been Tony that has been there to comfort the family and the loved ones, sometimes the most difficult times of their lives. He could better this community as a public servant, but bring people together, even people with divergent thoughts and philosophies, but in the end, bringing enough comfort, enough stability to a situation that there's a consensus and then resolution and progress that is made. So, I'm so excited. I've seen what a great job Tony's done now back in the legislature, but I do believe that with him as governor, that ability to bring people together, to bring folks even with different perspectives together. That's what this island needs. God bless Atacaubo 2026. God bless Guam.
I'm Tony Atta, and I approve this message.
Transportation, tourism, customs, utilities, and federal and foreign affairs touch every family, every business, every day. Jesse Michael Anderson Lujan believes Guam can be greater together by fighting for cabotage exemption, expanding the Philippine visa waiver program, and opening new doors for tourism investment and opportunity. Vote Jesse Lujan. Leadership you can see. Accountability you can trust.
I'm Jesse Michael Anderson Lujan, and I approve this message.
But if we are shortchanging ourselves, then that's going to come out on our people too. So At this time, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make an amendment to the amendment and change the collected tax rate from 5 to 6% for any military contract, and I'd like to discuss that amendment.
You may proceed. You may proceed on your amendment to the amendment.
My amendments are amendments?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I was just waiting for the timekeeper
Yeah,
to...
you have an opportunity to close. So you've moved the amendment, and so we'll open the floor for the amendment now.
Okay, can I open on the amendment before it goes around?
Sure.
Okay. And so I want to introduce this amendment to really open this discussion to the body on what does it mean when we say we want to take advantage of the military buildup for the betterment of our community. Because this is what it means for me. It means we raise the taxes on military contracts and we use it to improve schools, to improve hospitals, to improve public safety, to improve our environment, to fix problems associated with the buildup that we didn't foresee. I don't know if this amendment has a chance at all of passing. But I think this is an important conversation for us to have, because we are in the midst of the military buildup now. It's a military buildup we all know and we all concede that it is temporary. So if it is temporary, why not make hay while the sun is shining? Why not use these resources? That money is coming to Guam, whether this tax is at 3, 4, 5, 6, 7%. The United States government has a vested national security interest to invest these dollars here on Guam. If we raise the taxes on military contracts, these contracts aren't going to go somewhere else. These contracts are for Guam specifically. So let's I want to open up the floor here. I want to open up this amendment. Let's talk about what it's going to be meaning to us to take advantage of the military buildup. Because going from a 4.5% tax rate to a 4% tax rate and giving that to the military buildup as well, up to $10 million, that seems like the military buildup is taking advantage of us. How do we make this a more equitable situation? If it's not doing something like this, like raising the taxes on military contracts only, contracts that the BPC specifically gets paid by DOD, then what's the issue? What is stopping us from doing it? Because normally the refrain is that we're going to scare off investment, that we're going to scare off business. But we have a captive audience. The United States military is going to invest because of the war games that they are having with China, for the posturing that they are doing on what I could only imagine is World War III. So if that money is going to be spent here, let us take advantage of it. Like, I understand the impulse to be business friendly, but that impulse is supposed to serve a practical reason, and that reason is we're not trying to scare away the business to go somewhere else. But once again, with the military buildup, we have a captive client. If we raise our rates here, the military is not going to start suddenly building somewhere else. We know that Guam is strategically important like that, and we need to carry ourselves like we are important, like we do have the leverage to ask for things like this, to demand things like this on behalf of our people of Guam. To just roll over and capitulate because of some reflex to always capitulate to big business is wrong. This military buildup itself is a third, more than a third, of the island's economy. That's a real thing. That was a shocking number to me. Of our $9 billion economy here on Guam, a third of it is the military buildup. Think about that. Everything you've ever seen on the island get built, the military buildup is like 50% of that in the short time it's been here. And if it's truly temporary, then this increase in the tax rate will be temporary as well. It will sunset itself automatically when the military buildup ends. So I ask my colleagues, what does it mean to you when we say we're going to take advantage of the military buildup to better our island? Because that's what it means to me, and I hope my colleagues will support me in raising taxes on the military contractors that are changing the face of our island before our very eyes, and at least extract some benefit for the benefit of our people of Guam. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Parkinson. On the Parkinson Amendment, anyone wish to speak on the Parkinson Amendment? Senator Tadigui, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank my colleague, Senator from Mamgang Totomaiti, for that recommendation, because, it's a military buildup that's not going to be here much longer. The changes in the world that are happening right now are shifting big time, and that shift is now moving a lot of the military stockpile as well as build up to areas that are closer to what they say the enemy. We are the first line of defense? No, we are not actually the first line of defense. First line of defense are places like Japan, Korea, where our military bases are there. We have people stationed there. We're almost like in the second line. I wanted to put this in my closing, but Admiral Papar had went up to Congress recently asking for $160 billion for funding to increase their stockpile as well as other military buildup. And within that $160 billion, it was identified that $906 million, not billion, but million, was to be dedicated to Guam. 906 million to continue to address whatever was taken during the Iran crisis. And we're starting to see a huge shift. So that tells us how much more is the military, DOD, is going to invest in the island, or even invest in the war. There's not a war, but any kind of epic fury or anything that's moving forward, or addressing how we're going to monitor China and what they're doing and trying to keep up with China's stockpile versus ours. Money is shifting. It's not going to be very much longer that it will stop on Guam. They're already my colleagues. And I say this as the oversight chair of the military buildup, that I keep an eye on, a keen eye on what has been going on in the world and what is happening to our island when it comes to the military buildup. And now they're planning to shift rotations of those who are coming to Guam every 6 months, which means Section 30 money is not going to be what we anticipated. It's going to be for 4,000 Marines. Because if they're only here for 6 months on a rotational basis, we're not going to avail ourselves of those taxes that we anticipated to get. That's another shortfall. This military buildup is turning and shifting. 4 to 5 more years, that's it. And you guys know that goes by really quick, as you see, especially the first-timers in this legislature, how quickly 2 years goes by, really quick. I respect his amendment, but when this military buildup came, contracts were pushed out at 5% BPT. I think at 4% actually, if you go back where it used to be GRTs, now it's BPT, it was 4%, and then it moved into 5% later on with the BPT definition. But that was across the board to everybody on Guam, everybody on Guam. I think increasing it might not be conducive, maybe considered a little unfair. So but I do appreciate, his understanding of how it is important to maintain that agreement we had back in 2008 on how this military buildup is supposed to help our island, our people. So I have to respectfully, with all due respect to my good colleague, to object to that amendment.
On the Parkinson Amendment, anyone else wish to speak on the Parkinson Amendment? Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Mananasi Duas, Mr. Chair, it's so good to see you on a Saturday morning. And Mananasi Duas to my colleagues and to the people of Guam watching on the YouTube, as well as to our guests watching the session in the balcony. I stand in support of the amendment. It's very consistent with the messaging that Senator Parkinson and I had in the last fiscal year budget discussions. We get these press releases from our delegate, and a lot of times they talk about these billion-dollar projects that are included in the NDAA. Just one of these projects equals, in some cases, our entire budget of the government. And so as we read these press releases and they celebrate the potential building of a multi-billion-dollar missile defense system or a barracks for hundreds of millions of dollars, as I read those releases, I often scratch my head and wonder, what does this mean for Tanana and Tunpete? What does this mean for Primo Joe? What does this mean for Chalu Fred? What does it mean when we see these huge amounts of money and these huge projects being awarded to Guam, awarded to big construction companies that, for the most part, are using imported labor? So although these contracts that we read about, these military buildup contracts, have huge amounts of money attached to them, the return on investment for the people of Guam, because this is something that we are invested in, given the strategic importance of our island that we always hear about, it just doesn't measure up with the results for our people of Guam, because we're not treated like we're strategically important. And so again, while these projects are hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars, it means very little for our people unless we capture this revenue. So I commend Senator Taitigui and I commend Senator Parkinson for this amendment, although I think it's coming very late in the game. Very, very late in the game. We've lost out on a lot of revenue from these military buildup contracts, revenue that could have been transformative for our island and our people. Basta with this narrow-minded, self-defeating mindset that, oh, Guam is not good enough, our people are not good enough, we have to sassa ourselves, and we have to bend over backwards and do backflips so they can come and do business here. But what good is it if they come and do business here, if that business that they're doing here doesn't lead to improvements for our people? And it's so late in the game that experts in the construction industry are predicting the construction cliff to happen in less than 10 years, which could lead to a reduction, some people say, of $20 million in withholding taxes. So Senator Parkinson is right. These are captive contracts. If we pass this amendment, if we pass Senator Taitigui's amendment, these Department of Defense contractors are not going to pack up their carpet bags and take their business somewhere else because they can't. And that's why it's so important for us to change our mindset and stand up for our people, because our people are worth it. Our island is worth it. It's worthy of this investment. We're not talking about taxing the small local businesses because they already receive a reduced rate of business privilege tax. We're talking about increasing taxes on big money contracts so that we can do things for our people. Imagine if we were taxing these contracts at this rate, or even the rate that Senator Taitigui is offering. Haggasat, years back, we could have done things like put our power underground, build a seawall for our people, give them grants, give them assistance. But instead, we're jumping over dollars to get to pennies. And so I know you're getting the texts from the realtors, from the contractors, and it's disappointing that their texts speak louder than the voices of our people who are struggling and asking for help, asking for worthy investment because they're worth it. So thank you, Senator Parkinson, for this amendment. Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair.
On the Parkinson Amendment, anyone wish to speak? On the Parkinson Amendment, to the amendment. Senator Chalaw, you recognize.
Sidus Masi. I just want to say that I agree with the rationale of Senator Parkinson and my colleagues about how we have been told, and it's the chamber forums that are telling us that this military buildup, the revenue that we are receiving is going to be cut off, and it's not going to be gradual. It's going to be a cliff in 5 years or less. And very reputable contractors, actually, are the ones telling us this. And it's their recommendation that Guam take advantage of the revenue that we are able to get from this build-up construction period and put that aside and use it for when we turn to the civilian period again, hopefully, where we can bring contractors to work for the people of Guam, to build their houses, to build transportation, to put their power underground, as my colleague said, to improve their schools and the hospitals. All of that is going to require money. And we talk a lot about pivoting to new businesses, how we must expand our economy to while we have a good source of revenue here with this military contracting, we have to pivot our economy to other industries. Those are the industries that we need to incentivize. Those are the industries that might not be so eager to come, that might need investment, not just by themselves, but by us, the government, to help them to establish themselves here, to help us partner with them. And that is an investment, I think, that everybody should agree on. That they are the ones that might need the enticement. And I agree with the author of this amendment that these contractors, they don't need the enticement. And as the author of the main amendment said, this tax has been built into the contracts that they have. They're covered. And if subcontractors qualify for other rates, these contractors have not been identified, but when we did get the data from Revenue Tax, we were told, we got a breakdown of how many contractors there were that were not under the together with the 90%, the 10% that do not get the 3% tax rate. There's only 10% of the companies on Guam. 1,071 of those make under 2 million. 680 of those make over 2 million. They receive 3 billion in exemptions already. So they are already receiving tax exemptions. Not just the federal tax exemptions or the federal incentives, but in local exemptions. So, I don't know if it's a personal thing that, we want to just feel sorry for them, but they are business people. They came here willingly, knowing exactly what they were facing, built it into their contracts, and are doing very well. We, on the other hand, have a population that we cannot house. We have a growing homelessness problem. We have schools that have not been built or cannot be fixed unless we invest in them. And we are looking to build a $1 billion hospital that this is the investment into the people of Guam that we need to make.
On the Parkinson Amendment, anyone wish to speak on the Parkinson Amendment? To the amendment. On the Parkinson Amendment to the amendment, anyone wish to speak? Senator Parkinson, you can close on your amendment to the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's quite a different experience for myself being in the minority because, aside from the lack of institutional power, it sees the difference in the behavior of my colleagues. Where once their voices would sing out in these halls using as much time as possible to let their views be heard, now with real authority and real power at their disposal, they remain silent. And that's disappointing to me. Because my people of Guam, let me level set you on how important Guam is to the planning of the federal government and the United States military. We are, without hyperbole, probably the most important military base in the world. That's how much of a capture we have on these military contractors. We are strategically important because of our location. You can't, that's not a fungible thing. They can't just pull up their stakes and go somewhere else that has just as much strategic value to them as Guam does. And so when the military and the United States government and the Department of War invest in Guam, it's not because of their better angels. It's because they see value for themselves. And they are here to take advantage of our island for their benefit, to advance their interest. And the deal is supposed to be that we are to use the revenues from this military buildup to make this a win-win situation, that we could use these extra revenues and all these things that are being built up in our community in ways that can help us as well. But if we are not properly taxing the military buildup, then what was it all for? What were we doing? And I hear the objections of the original author for this amendment, but those same arguments will be used against your position as well. That right now everyone else is paying 4.5%. It's inherently unfair that everyone else is paying 5%. But if we're going to do a tiered tax system of some kind, then that's what happens. And I agree that these two things should not be taxed at the same rate. My local World Market down the street from my house should not be sharing the same tax rate as a major firm from the world coming into Guam, making a huge ecological and financial footprint on this island that we are not adequately taking advantage of. We have an opportunity here to express to our people of Guam through our legislation what it means to take advantage of the military buildup so that the military buildup doesn't take advantage of us. We are derelict in our duties if we do not take advantage of this temporary measure. If we're worried about this becoming some sort of permanent tax, I understand that. But every sign we see says that the buildup from the military is going to reach a cliff. It's going to reach an end. By those very circumstances, that by definition makes this a temporary tax as well. A temporary tax on businesses that cannot go anywhere else. These contracts that they are putting out are specifically for Guam and nowhere else. So I ask, if we don't take advantage of it like this, then how do we take advantage of it? This is how I want to do it, and I ask my colleagues to support this way of doing it. Because if it's not this, then how? Do we just let the military buildup come in, greatly affect our community, and extract no resources to benefit our own? We could use the money from this military buildup as seed money to start new industries, whatever those industries may be. It takes money to make money. It takes money to start new industries. So I ask my colleagues to please support this amendment. Let's tax the military buildup, and let's do it right while we still have time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
On the Parkinson Amendment, there has been an objection. All those in favor of the Parkinson Amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. Amendment fails. On the main amendment, Tadigui Amendment, anyone wish to speak? Your time is up, Senator. On the main amendment,
my time is up on the
when you move an amendment, and you open and close, you're done on the amendment to amendment because you've chosen that time to speak on the amendment. We don't keep that time, Senator. Once you move an amendment, then your time is up. On the Tadigui Amendment, anyone else wish to speak? Yes, Senator Paris, you're recognized.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. That's not how we do it. We always go back to the time left.
Senator, we don't record that. We set a new clock for you to move an amendment to the amendment, which gives you extra time to open and close on your amendment. Whenever you moved, then wait until the end of the time next time when you move an amendment to the amendment. That's the only way to use all of your time. Senator Paris, you're recognized. That's the ruling of the chair. Senator Paris, you're recognized.
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I challenge that ruling. That is a made-up rule. That's not at all. They're entitled to their time.
Yes, please make a motion to overrule the chair.
I move that. I just want some
All in
order in
favor
here.
of
I don't want the
overruling
rules
the
to
chair?
keep changing every time you're the
Yes.
chairperson.
There
of
is
the
a
committee.
motion to overrule the chair. All in favor of overruling the chair, please indicate by raising your hand. Motion failed. Senator Paris, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to point out some of the information provided by the public auditor. At one point, he estimated that we are leaking about $40 million from military contractors. And some of the information in the audit stated that if you look at what the sample that they have done amongst 16 contractors from the years 2016 to 2020, the GR gross receipts range, so as far as collection on taxes, range from 0.19% to 4.31% only. And that was below the 4% rate that was effective August 2005 and a 5% rate effective April 1st, 2018. So when you look at it, you know, there is a reduction in collections and a leakage of BPT collections. The other thing they pointed out was that prime contractors are not eligible for exemptions, but some subcontractors are eligible for exemptions. And so, unfortunately, through the enforcement capacity of DRT, they're unable to really kind of keep up to date with who's a contractor, the prime contractor and the subcontractor, which eventually resulted in the leakage of the collection of BPT. So this is a key information when we're thinking about, ensuring that we are getting the taxes that are due to the people of Guam for business that is done by military for military contracts. We are told that the military buildup will be ending soon. There is a cliff, and Dr. Roseanne Jones says that we need to make the most of this time before that cliff occurs, in order to diversify our economy. And so, as the proffer of the amendment stated, many of the contracts, the taxation's already written in the contracts, and DOD is actually paying for it. It's not, the businesses themselves. It's basically, it's already integrated into the contract. And so I think if we really want to, get ahead of the game, rather than wait to see the impacts fall on us, I think it's prudent and wise to utilize these funds. And I just did a quick calculation. If it's $906 million, what we're talking about is $45 million. $45 million versus the $36 million. Of course, that's a $9 million difference, but I mean, that $9 million can go towards, as you've seen in the Committee of the Whole, they need that for child care services. So I think that, there's no loss here in regards to maintaining a BPT rate for the military contractors at 5%. But there is great loss to our community. And so I think that, there's other deficiencies that the auditor pointed out in regards to military collection of BPT from military contractors. It could potentially be a higher leakage due to the taxation enforcement capacity by DRT, and the inability to really tie into the IRS platform. It's unfortunate because in the U.S., for say if you make money in Nevada, and you live in Massachusetts, they can track that. But here in Guam, there's a wall because some of these businesses have different names, and they don't file. I mean, that's one of the findings of the public auditor, is that some of these businesses don't file business. They don't have a valid business license here, but yet they get to reap the benefits. So this is really a mechanism for us to regain some of the loss and the leakage that is due to Guam. And I must say, it's a very modest mechanism if we're talking 45 million. But if you're looking at a drop of 9 million, it really is a modest means to regain some of the loss, when in fact, it's been estimated at over $40 million. We've leaked thus far, and possibly more. So if we really are thinking about, the long-term support of our community, this is really a modest mechanism.
Thank you, Senator. On the tie degree amendment, anyone wish to speak on the tie degree amendment? Senator Gumatato, you're recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, this is a dangerous amendment. We all know that tourism is at its weakest point as an industry in over 50 years. Federal expenditure across the island is what is keeping our economy afloat today. The North American Industry Classification System codes list small businesses and small business size standards matched to industry. This in turn determines the Small Business Administration size standard. Many are capped at $10 to $20 million in annual revenue to qualify as a small business. Common NAICS codes near the $10 million threshold landscaping at $9.5 million, architectural services and office furniture, equipment merchant wholesalers at $10 million, administrative management and general management consulting, and security system services both at $12.5 million, engineering services tops at $16.5 million. These are just a sampling. 1,012 industries. Mr. Chairman, just 3,477 total employer business establishments, according to the latest SBA Guam Small Business Profile, do business here, both on base and off. They are already challenged to grow in 2026. For over 15 years, this important business model has been more than compromised. The 2013 sequester for all Department of Defense contracts, the 2019 global pandemic, the 2021 sequester for DoD contracts, Typhoon Mawar in 2023, and back-to-back storms this year. This amendment would create another challenge. 53,941 Guam residents, our mothers, our fathers, our brothers and sisters, working for Guam-based companies like Guam Bakery, Ambrose Inc., Cars Plus, Pacific Grocers, Pacific Unlimited, Benson, Guam Enterprises. The list is longer. These and others would be impacted. Many of these companies do work both inside and outside the fences of Guam's military installations. Did they get a chance to share their thoughts here? No, they did not. That is our role, and I accept that. What I will not accept is an attempt to claw more money from the engine of this economy out of fear that the buildup is going away. This effort started way before a 2004 Defense Policy Review Initiative between the United States and Japan. This effort will continue way past the last light bulb that is installed for the U.S. military in Jigo or in Sumai, from an agreement that started just over 20 years ago. Don't sink our work on and off base. We need to build them up, not bring them down. I did not support this particular policy change last fiscal year targeting military contractors. I do not support this amendment today, and I urge my colleagues to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Guptauto. On the tie degree amendment, anyone else wish to speak on the tie degree amendment? Senator Lujan, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and colleagues. Good Saturday morning to everybody. I as well rise in opposition to this amendment, Mr. Chair. Is this the message that we really want to send at a time when Guam is experiencing really unprecedented federal investment? As I said last night, most of our hotels are up for sale, and federal spending is really what's keeping, if not most of them, all of them alive at this point, Mr. Chair. You know, since this legislature established an AI task force, I decided to start dabbing a little bit in Chat GPT, right? So I asked a simple question. Who are the Guam businesses that could be affected if this proposal reaches military contractors and suppliers? And the answer wasn't just the large construction companies, and was already mentioned by the previous speaker, of course, the good senator from Talvovo, Senator Shango Batautau. Let me reiterate that list. The list included Guam Bakery, American Bakery, Mid-Pacific Far East, Pacific Grocers, Ambrose, Triple J, Atkins Scroll, Cars Plus, Morrico Equipment, Benson Guam Enterprises, Pacific Unlimited, Guam Industrial Services, GTA, Docomo, Guam Security Agency, Guam Human Resources Services, along with local engineering firms, architects, surveyors, accountants, trucking companies, equipment rental companies, electricians, plumbers, HVAC contractors, and countless other small businesses that support military projects every single day. Mr. Chairman, these aren't faceless corporations. These are Guam businesses. These are businesses that employ our neighbors, sponsor Little League teams, support our nonprofits, and keep our economy moving. The military buildup should be an opportunity for our local businesses, not a reason to single them out with higher tax rate, Mr. Chair. Just a short time ago, the legislature came together to lower the business privilege tax to 4%. We did that because we believe government doesn't create prosperity. Our private sector does. We wanted Guam to be more competitive. We wanted business to invest, expand, hire, and grow. Now we're considering reversing the course because this government can't control itself but must spend, spend, and spend. If the concern is ensuring that the very large defense contractors pay their fair share, then let's have that conversation. But a broad tax increase on military-related commerce risks reaching far beyond the largest contractors and into Guam's local business community. What happens when a local bakery supplies bread to a military dining facility? What happens to a local trucking company that delivers materials to a defense project? What happens to a local engineering firm who performs a survey? A local security company guards a work site. Every additional tax becomes another cost of doing business here, Mr. Chair. And businesses don't absorb costs forever. They pass them along through higher prices, reduced hiring, small investments, or fewer opportunities for local workers. So, Mr. Chair, Guam has spent years trying to position itself as a premier destination for defense investment in the Pacific. We should be doing everything we can to encourage local participation in that growth, not making Guam businesses less competitive than they are today. Mr. Chairman, again, look around us. Businesses are leaving. Instead of enticing, we're saying we're going to tax you to death. And when you talk about big businesses, oh, these big bad companies, put names, put faces to them, like we just did, like the good senator from Talafofo did. Companies that you're saying, big bad companies. When you're talking about big bad companies, you're talking about big bad companies, yeah, such as the American Bakery, Guam Bakeries, right? Mid-Pacific, Far East, Pacific Grocers, Ambrose, Triple J, Atkins Grow, Cars Plus, Morico Equipment, Benson Guam Enterprises, Pacific Unlimited, Guam Industrial Services, GTA, Docomo Pacific, Guam Security Agencies.
Thank you, Senator. Your time is up.
Thank you very much. These are the big bad agencies you're talking about.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Point of information, Mr. Chair.
Senator Taidwi, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair, it just came to my attention, realizing after the discussion, Mr. Chair, this was the wrong amendment that was put in. And it's supposed to say military buildup. But one of my colleagues brought it to my attention. And just to let everyone know, this is not supposed to be military contracts. It's supposed to be military buildup contracts. So I apologize to my colleagues, but another colleague will be making an amendment to incorporate after everything that says military, will say military buildup. So it only affects the buildup, not the regular contracts, Mr. Chair, that my other two colleagues were talking about. There's no way I wanted to jeopardize that. It's just the buildup. So I just wanted my colleagues to know as they move forward with their discussions that it will be amended to military buildup contracts and not just military contracts. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Taidwi. On the Taidwi amendment, any other? Senator Duane, you're recognized.
Susmasi, Mr. Chair. We look forward to the discussion on a possible amendment to the amendment, but I just want to share the sentiments of the current retiring speaker and also, you know, to another member who says we don't speak on these things. Sometimes on the outrageous things we don't speak, but when it comes back to the main motion and there's more sanity, we have a conversation about it. Mr. Chair, you know, I want to take a different perspective here. Years ago, when I was before I became a senator in 2011, I was the land management director. And during that time, there was the buildup and the consideration of the buildup and also building the firing range. And the proposal was for Pauget. And of course, our people rose up and said they didn't want it there. But in the meantime, I had meetings with several members as a member of the Civilian Military Task Force, and one of them was General Bice. And when I had that meeting, he said, you know, is there anything we can do to try to, you know, see if this can go forward? Other than that, we'll find our own footprint for the range. And I said, well, you might want to consider helping out the Chamorro Land Trust, maybe $150 million down payment to build infrastructure and help our people build homes. And when I shared that, Mr. Chair, the outrage that came from members of the legislature during that time was incredible. You know, sometimes we look a gift horse in the mouth when we talk a lot of times about wanting to help our people. And I say that to say this, Mr. Chair. We sit on the floor here and we want to raise this money because we talk about, because we need to build housing, because we need to build infrastructure, because our people need this and our people need that. What are we arguing about for the last 7 years, particularly of this administration, with millions and millions of dollars pouring in? And what have we grown? The government. What have we moved on? Nothing. Chamorro Land Trust leases? No. What have we gotten? We're trying to make a budget right now that's reasonable to constrain government, to continue to help our suffering businesses, and some members on this floor call them is fat cats who want to put money in their pocket. They don't talk about the people and the lives that are behind that. The jobs, the 50-some thousand jobs on this island that rely on those companies' survival. They don't talk about not even understanding. Most of these people have never signed the front of a check. They've always signed the back of the check. They don't know what businesses go through every day to try to survive. Some read the budget by candlelight. A lot of businesses right now are trying to figure out how to survive by candlelight. Mr. Chair, I say that to say this. If we're serious about these kind of things, why don't we talk about this in the context of a public benefit at some point? Sit down with our congressmen. Sit down with the military. Talk about how we can get additional resources to the island by expressing our concerns, by ensuring that we're having a proper conversation, that if they do write a check, it's for housing, for infrastructure, for other public benefits that we make our case for, other than the revenue we're getting now that we're half the time not spending properly to take care of our people. But that's not it. Because just like other amendments that are going to pop up in here, I'm going to show everybody how I can give them something from taxpayers' dollars that's supposed to run the government, that's supposed to bring efficiency, that's supposed to bring services, that's supposed to bring public safety, that's supposed to bring education. But yet, what have we done? Most of the time, more government, more government. We're not having a logical conversation about this, Mr. Chair. We're having a give me more money conversation about this. And our neighbors that are here are bad neighbors. The businesses are evil. Pitting our community against each other, trying to make political points instead of having salient conversations about public benefit. That's my problem, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, I yield my time to the Senator.
Speaker Blas yields his time to you, Senator Duenas.
Thank you. Thank you, Speaker. So yes, we can go in and entertain an amendment to the amendment and see what that might mean. But the fact remains the same. The fact remains the same. The Chamber of Commerce, yes. A group of businesses. We talk about how only certain amounts of those businesses actually pay that tax. What does that mean, Mr. Chair? Those businesses, by and large, are most of the businesses that employ the most people on this island. And they also, yes, pay not only at that rate, but they pay exponentially more because they pay a lot more taxes. This is the same argument stateside. Tax, 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 tax. Tax the rich. What does it really mean? When you go down that road, you're taxing the individuals that create the wealth for everybody else. I was talking to an evil business person earlier that basically said, you keep going down this road, that it trickles down to our business, public benefit, different things that you want to give giveaways for that you're going to need tax dollars for. What does that do for me when my margins are 1%, 2%, 3%, but I supply insurance to my employees? That insurance, that benefit that I might give them could be $500, $800, $1,000 a month. But if I got to pay that because you're putting your finger on me, I have to go to that employee and say, I'll try my best. Maybe I'm only going to be able to kick in $300 or $400. Now you're going to come up now with $700 to help you pay your insurance if you want to keep it. Because I love that benefit I was giving you. I still want to employ you, but I can't pay that insurance. You know, Mr. Chair, that could be a mother with 3 children. So we all talk about how the government's going to help people when we got programs, and God bless them, federal programs and other programs, GURA, Medicaid, all the other stuff we're going to talk about continuously. We talk about that, but we don't talk about these people. Go to these, I know you do, because you're a small business, Mr. Chair. Go to these businesses and look at them and talk to them. Don't just talk about them. Talk to their employees, because I do it. And they will tell you how much they've had trepidation before. When they know their businesses are on the edge, they can see the stress on their bosses and think, gosh, I hope it's not me today. Or I hope they're not going to have this meeting that we have to say, listen, I'd love to give you a raise, but I got to freeze everything for the rest of this year just to keep your jobs. That's what I'm trying to say, Mr. Chair. I can guarantee you from some of the sentiment on this floor, there's a lot of people here that have not had to face that. Once again, look at the labor report. 55,000 people in our private sector. We have close to 12,000 government employees. And by and large, of course, we rely on them. And they're hardworking and they keep our services going. But exponentially, they have more pay and more benefits, which is good and fine. But it's supported by the taxes of the 55,000, as well as their taxes, the 55,000 employees that are paying their taxes and the businesses that are paying their taxes to keep this business afloat. Now, I know we're talking about military contracts, but once again, it all trickles down. Those contractors do business in this community too. They buy from companies, they will pay that, they will extend that down. So, Mr. Chair, the bottom line is that when we do sweeping change like this without real studies and not talk about saying, let's talk about public benefit, which is a real conversation, we're going to levy a tax on you, and we don't really know where the hell the money's going. We say we do, but the examples are just not there. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I object to the amendment.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. On the title degree amendment, any others? Senator Barnett, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair. Boy, my dear people of Guam, It's rich when we have colleagues in here talk about making sweeping changes with no data, like the business privilege tax rollback of 1% that erased $80 million of revenue for critical public services, like those kind of sweeping changes. It's really philosophical. You know, my colleagues say, oh, how many of you in here have ever signed the front of a check? You've only signed the back of the check. How many of you in here have signed the back of a check and it's already gone? It's already gone because you've got so many bills. You sign the back of a check, it's gone, and then you go, look, where can you borrow money to get by? Because so many of our people live paycheck to paycheck. And if you've experienced this, Speaker, then si Dios masi. But it's really about perspective. They want to say that if we're trying to stick up for our people and get worthy investments for our island, that we're saying the businesses are evil. Nobody ever said that. In fact, if you go back, we tried to do a tiered implementation of the business privilege tax reduction. And so I stand in support of the amendment, and I'd like to just add, if it's okay with the author, the word buildup there on the gross income of any military buildup contract, if the chair would indulge, because in the actual budget bill, and my colleague who is using ChatGPT, you have to tell ChatGPT that the wholesalers don't pay tax. But in the actual bill, it reads any military contract exceeding $10 million. So while my colleagues over here are talking about, oh, we're going to tax the businesses, their own bill taxes any military contract exceeding $10 million. And so I'd like to, Mr. Chair, if you'll allow it, to add the word buildup after the word military in the amendment. You know, Speaker Blas was talking about internet as a convenience, and they didn't need it 30 years ago, and that's because this is how they did it 30 years ago. They were allowed to amend on the fly. Law, we've moved all of our processes to digital, so we can't do it like how they did it 30 years ago. But if you'll indulge, Mr. Chair, I would like to amend the amendment so that we could be clear that we're discussing military buildup related contracts, sir.
On the Barnett amendment to the amendment, Senator Tadigui, you recognize.
Si Dios masi, Mr. Chair, and I'd like to thank my colleague, Senator Barnett, for making that change. Now I understand why those two individuals I spoke to earlier was concerned about if a military member comes to Guam and buys a home from one of our people, you know, who are local people here, that they would have to pay the 5%. And I kept reiterating to everybody, military buildup, which is not going to be here very much longer. Like I said, the shift in military is happening today, and it changes all the time. This is about an agreement, like I mentioned, the 4 pillars, the agreement because of this buildup, what it's going to impact our island. By no means am I trying to impact our local businesses here at all. And even so, American Bakery, I don't think, has a $10 million contract with the military. And I don't think all those other agencies or companies that were discussed earlier has 10 million and over contracts with the military. Those contracts are for larger scales, dealing with the building of the down, what's that one? Happening in NCS. Cam blocks. That's like a whole city down there. We were just recently there. And what's happening on Anderson Air Force Base with all the hangars. And these hangars are in the millions, hundreds of millions to build these hangars. Those are the things that we're trying to capture, not the small businesses, which are not even affected currently right now. It's the bigger contracts. However, there are some military buildup contracts that are below 10 million. And we need to capture every amount we can get before this military buildup leaves this island. So this amendment is meant to capture that, proffered by Senator from Jotnya. Captures the essence of what we're trying to do here, the military buildup. So I stand in full support of that amendment so that those military members who come to this island, who want to buy property, or military members who are coming to Guam who want to open a business on this island, we encourage that. This is not about them. So again, I stand in full support of this amendment to change it to military buildup and not military contracts. Thank you.
On the Burnett Amendment, Senator Parkinson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, it's interesting, the discussion that we're having here on the floor, that the position of some members of this chamber is that the very concept of a different consideration for the tax rate of military businesses is unfathomable, unthinkable, a ridiculous idea. Well, why is that a ridiculous idea? The retiring speaker is right that this is a temporary event, this military buildup, and we need to take advantage of it. There's so much straw manning of arguments going on this floor because it's not engaging with the substance of it. I never called the businesses evil, never once demonized them. I talked about the impacts of the military buildup on our island and making sure we extract a fair value to mitigate the effects of the military buildup on our island. We have record withholding tax and BPT and corporate tax. That means people are making money on this island. It is happening. Except the benefits of all that prosperity that's coming from the military buildup is not reaching everyone on this island. It's reaching the few and the well-connected who have people in here advocating for cuts in their taxes when they don't even pay it, when the Department of Defense is the one that pays that tab. We are going over here trying to hamstring ourselves for what? We're here to serve the people of Guam, not the military contractors from the States trying to change our island. It's really interesting how we use the small businesses of our island as shields, as rhetorical shields. We're talking about businesses with revenues of the millions of dollars, and you want to throw around American bakery like that's who we're going after. Like, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. The people of Guam know that's a ridiculous thing. We are here to try and extract fair value from the multi-billion-dollar defense industry that is happening on our island. Think about all the industry you've ever seen on Guam in your entire lifetime. And in the few short years the military buildup has been happening, they amount to about a third of our entire Guam economy. potentially more in coming years if tensions in the Pacific continue to heat up. And I don't see things cooling down in our future. But instead of using these resources to mitigate some of the dangers, instead of investing in things like civilian defense and dual-use facilities in case we are attacked, instead of hardening our infrastructure, instead of spreading out our healthcare infrastructure so that we are not vulnerable, we are instead using our time and our effort and our energy to cut taxes for multi-million-dollar military buildup businesses. After years and years and years and years of rhetoric of let's take advantage of the military buildup, it is going to bring all this prosperity and tax revenue to the island. But now here we are, and we don't want to collect the tax revenue. We want to use American Bakery as justification to give Raytheon or whatever big military company comes out to the island the same tax considerations as World Market and MTM. That doesn't make any sense. We are supposed to be advocating for the best interest of our island, not for the best interest of military contractors. I implore this body to keep your priorities straight, and I ask my colleagues to support the Taitagui Amendment overall. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
On the Barnett Amendment, anyone wish to speak? On the Barnett Amendment. Senator Barnett, you can close.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Chair, for the opportunity to close, and Sidus Masi to my colleagues who rose and spoke in support of the amendment. And I agree with the retiring speaker. I don't think we were elected to come in here and defend with all our might the big bad military contractors who come from off island and make hundreds of millions, even billions of dollars here. You know, my colleagues keep throwing around the word take advantage of these military buildup projects and you know, capture the revenue from these, you know, massive big dollar projects. And I agree we need to take advantage, but I don't like the words take advantage because I think it's more about receiving what is our fair share. If we really believe that we're worth it and we deserve worthy investment, then let's support this amendment. My colleagues are saying let's have the conversation. We're having the conversation right now. We're having the conversation right now. And I think it's reasonable if you're an off-island military, Department of Defense contractor, you're listed on the NASDAQ, you come to Guam to do a project, the DOD is already embedded, they're going to pay the tax. I think it's very reasonable to say that if you make more, you should pay more. If you make hundreds of millions of dollars on these contracts, then you should pay a meaningful rate so that when all the dust settles and we're falling down the construction cliff, at least we as elected leaders can say that we fought for Guam. We fought for Guam. We didn't fight for Raytheon or Halliburton or Blackwell. We fought for Guam. We fought for meaningful investment, a meaningful tax rate for these Department of Defense military buildup related contracts. Not trying to tax the people who are delivering donuts to Naval Station. That's ridiculous. And that's why we can't have these conversations, because it goes back to the perspective, the narrow-mindedness, tunnel vision on giving tax breaks to the doctors, to the big businesses, even to big tobacco. That's why after 2 years under this majority, we're still looking at the same damn problems. Because the priority has been Tax break, tax break, tax break. And I don't know if these tax breaks have led to anything that's going to mean more improvements. What it's led to is a status quo budget. Status quo. Is anyone in this hall happy with status quo? Isn't that why you're all running for governor? Because you want to make Guam better? I think if you want to make Guam better, Fanogi, you have to stand for Guam. Stand for the people who live here, not the people who come here to make money and then they're gone. They're almost gone already. That's why we have to stand for our people. Assert ourselves. And reasonably demand that they come here, they do these big projects, they're going to pay more. The Department of Defense is going to pay more. Federal spending is holding up a lot of our island, and that's why we need to make sure that we tax it meaningfully. And so humbly, although we can read the room here, ask for support for my colleagues for this amendment, which again makes it that so any military buildup related contract is taxed at this higher rate as proffered by Senator Taitigui. Mr. Chair.
On the amendment to the amendment, all in favor? Any objection? Objection to the amendment? And all in favor of the amendment to the amendment, please raise your hand. Amendment fails. On the Taitigui amendment.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, who objected?
Senator Chalahi objected. On the amendment to the amendment, or excuse me, on the main amendment, anybody else wish to speak?
Mr. Chair, can I have like a 1-minute recess, please?
We're finishing the bill.
Right, can I just have a 1-minute recess,
on the main amendment, anybody else wish to speak?
May I actually make a recommendation to reconsider the objection?
There is a motion to reconsider the motion, the previous actions. Is there an objection to that? There is an objection. All in favor of reconsidering the previous action of the body? Motion?
To reconsider?
Motion fails to reconsider. On the Taitigui amendment, anyone who has not spoken on the Taitigui amendment wishes to speak.
Why would
Senator Chalahi, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support the Taitigui amendment, and for the same reason that the underlying provision was put into the law, that we are going to tax prime contractors for military contracts at a different rate, that should be continued. For the same reasons that it was put in the first place, for the same reasons that Guam legislatures before us have always differentiated between these prime contractors and subcontractors. And that our subcontractors, according to OPA and the audit that was read earlier, they're eligible for a different rate. As subcontractors, they're also eligible for different rates if they're wholesalers, and they're eligible for exemptions. Exemptions if they make less than $500,000. Exemptions if they are banks. They only get taxed on the net. Exemptions even for those who are making over $2 million, exemptions totaling $3 billion for 680 companies. Those are a lot of exemptions that the people of Guam are already giving up. So continuing this provision, I think is prudent. Again, it's what's been recommended to us to save the money that we are making on this buildup and use it to pivot our industries. To pivot them, we need to incentivize. This is where the money comes from. This is where the money comes from for the tax credits for certain businesses down in Tumon to get tax credits to fix up their buildings. While every mom and pop store in our villages are not getting those same tax credits to fix up their stores. Neither are our residences getting tax credits to fix up their stores, even after the typhoon. This is where the money's coming from, or this is the money we need, not only to pivot to new businesses, but to support our existing businesses, such as tourism. Those businesses are going through a hard time, and everybody wants to help them, and we should. Because we can see if we can improve tourism, they are still a good bet for Guam. And we should do that. But we can't do that if we're going to give away our revenue. We can't do anything that we've promised to do to make the people of Guam thrive here by giving up revenue in military contracts. Revenue that, according to the auditor, the military is already paying in the contracts. Revenue that subcontractors are exempt from this provision. This is how we invest. The hotel industry is paying the BPT. They're also paying the hotel occupancy tax at 11%. 11% on hotels, but we are shying away from 5% on million-dollar military contracts. Why? And there's no mention of the burden. And if we can help the people of Guam by getting the revenue that's already being paid for by the military, not even by the contractors themselves, why wouldn't we do that to help the other people of Guam? To help all of them, to fix the roads for these same contractors and subcontractors, to fix the roads for the tourism industry and the flooding, and Matapang Beach that's been washed away. Why not? This is the rate they were taxed at until October of last year. It's not, in order to support the businesses that are supporting Guam,
Thank you, Senator.
we
That's
need
your time.
to
Wrap it up.
take the revenue that the people of Guam are entitled to for the burden that they are carrying to support these businesses.
Thank you, Senator. On the Tide-Agui Amendment, anybody else wish to speak on the Tide-Agui Amendment? Senator Tide-Agui, you can close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment was not an anti-military amendment. I mentioned earlier to my colleagues that the bill was missing the part where it's supposed to say military buildup. The intention was not to hurt our local business, even though, like I said earlier, this probably doesn't affect the smaller businesses. If somebody comes to buy property here for like $5 million, $5 million, it's not going to affect them. We're talking about big contracts, and that was my intention. But now this amendment that I proffered is taking it down to any amount of money that military contracts, because that amendment failed earlier to allow it for military buildup. Again, that was not my intention. It was for buildup funding, the same money that we were anticipating for on this military buildup that the people of Guam were going to benefit from. That's what my amendment was supposed to be. Unfortunately, it did not get through. To amend my amendment, so that, again, then it's just disappointing. But I'm going to try again, Mr. Chair. I have the opportunity in another chapter to introduce another amendment that incorporates military buildup and not all military contracts. So I also want to reiterate, Mr. Chair, that I'm fighting for the people of Guam and what they deserve. Because our people deserve to feel safe, supported and valued. The same opportunity and protections that every other American enjoys. Especially here in the Pacific. We live in the reality that Guam carries a target on her head because of this military buildup. We carry it on our backs. And that means we must prepare, adapt, advocate, even harder for them. And I have not steered away from that, but I don't plan to go into the direction of our small businesses here too, as well. My amendment goes from taking away the threshold to any amount, from 10 million to any amount, but that was not my intention. So with that being said, Mr. Chair, I'd like to withdraw my amendment.
On the motion for the amendment to be withdrawn, are there any objections? Seeing and hearing none, the amendment's been withdrawn. Vice?
Senator Duenas, you're recognized on your amendment.
Susmasi, Mr. Chair, I'm sure everyone has the proper stack, so I don't think we have to go through the reading of all of the numbers on the top. Colleagues, this is a very simple amendment. As we mentioned when we opened up the session.
What did you all think about that? What did you think about all of those arguments that were made? You know, when those companies were being read, right? I think it was Senator Lujan, or no, I think Senator Gumatauza and then Senator Lujan who started to read the names of companies. And no offense to any of those companies, but I didn't feel 1 ounce of remorse. I didn't feel bad whatsoever for the idea that those companies would pay the BPT at the current rate of 4.5%. Like, it didn't make me feel bad whatsoever. It also didn't make sense in my mind how those companies continuing to pay 4.5% would somehow lead to the economic demise of this island, or that it somehow would lead to the workers within those industries not making out. And but and I'm not entirely sure who's right in the debate as to who would be impacted by this. And I wouldn't go with just what anybody is, just because one senator said so or another senator said so. It's kind of unclear as to, if this language was added into the law, who would be impacted by this. I suppose the ideal thing would really be for the companies that have the big military buildup contracts to pay at the higher tax rate for the privilege of doing business on this island. Now, whether those other companies that do have local roots, and these are your bigger companies, whether those that do have local roots would be included in that somehow, would probably be because of some attachment to a military buildup contract, whether as a subcontractor, but I think there are already lower rates for that. Or the impact would not be direct. It would be as part of the direct military buildup contract, which, according to what senators on both sides of the aisle are saying, according to an audit, the military already funds those taxes. And so I just have to wonder, why are senators digging in their heels on this matter when these arguments are being made, when these facts are being presented? And I have to, I'm thinking, is it because these Republicans made this promise and now they're not going to go back on this promise because they made the promise? And they made the promise to voters, not just to the Chamber of Commerce, but to voters. And then that brings me to the question, should they have made that promise to begin with? Because look at the situation we're in now. And I think some of these senators are right. Like, why are we bending over backward for the profit of these companies that have no vested interest in this island? Matter of fact, all they're doing is taking advantage of a great opportunity presented to them by the military buildup, which is something that is coming at the expense of the regular people of Guam for a number of reasons. I mean, one of which, of course, is the price of housing. And to help to assuage the economic impacts that have adversely impacted us, maybe it is a darn good idea for these companies who are making the tens to hundreds of millions of dollars while having the privilege of doing business on this island should pay a higher tax rate. They should absolutely pay for the privilege of doing business on this island. And how is that either unreasonable or how is that not? That's just the smart thing to do. Like, why wouldn't we, residents, citizens of this island, want that benefit for us, for regular people? I don't know. Can someone please, if I'm misinformed here, and I'm wondering, because I'm not a money person, not a finance person, but at the same time, you got to make it make sense for me. And while I respect the Republican senators wanting to keep their promise, I'm also not going to keep my mouth shut about something that I see is, that doesn't make sense to me. Make it make sense. Anyway, maybe we'll get one of these senators or a couple of them to talk to us on tomorrow's show. I'm noticing that the stupid data thing went out just a little bit. Sorry about that. Anyway, for Kandit News, I'm Troy Torres. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. We will be live again on the morning show at 8 a.m. tomorrow. It would be the Wednesday news analysis. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. God bless you all, and good night.
He has that innate talent of even the most difficult times, giving comfort, giving solace, bringing stability. In my 64 years, there are people I've known that have passed away, and there's been Tony that has been there to comfort the family and the loved ones, sometimes the most difficult times of their lives. He could better this community as a public servant, but bring people together, even people with divergent thoughts and philosophies, but in the end, bringing enough comfort enough stability to a situation that there's a consensus and then resolution and progress then is made. So, I'm so excited. I've seen what a great job Tony's done now back in the legislature. But I do believe that with him as governor, that ability to bring people together, to bring folks even with different perspectives together, it's what this island needs. God bless Atacaubo 2026. God bless Guam.
I'm Tony Atta, and I approve this message.
Transportation, tourism, customs, utilities, and federal and foreign affairs touch every family, every business, every day. Jesse Michael Anderson Lujan believes Guam can be greater together by fighting for cabotage exemption, expanding the Philippine visa waiver program, and opening new doors for tourism investment and opportunity. Vote Jesse Lujan. Leadership you can see. Accountability you can trust.
I'm Jesse Michael Anderson Lujan, and I approve this message.